Hello students, Wendy Ansley here, kinesiology professor at College of the Desert. I have always by me my blocks, my straps, and I look forward to sharing with you this fun sequence today that's very well rounded. It's actually going to go after one of my favorite postures, the splits Anamanasana. When I wrote this sequence, I always loved to share with you a message. And the message that I want to share with you today is optimism. And optimism, it's a mental attitude. It's an attitude. And it's characterized by hope and confidence in success for a positive future. So it's not always, oh, look, rainbows and wherever I go, positive, good things, right? That's not how life is. It's the reason it's important to be optimistic is because we need to learn from our mistakes. We need to learn that there's new opportunities to learn and sometimes move forward. And there's also something else that we're going to experience in life, suffering and pain. And we need to know that there is sometimes so much gained through our suffering and our pain. Sometimes it's a spiritual awakening. And that's why it's important to develop this mental attitude of optimism. To encourage yourself, to be able to look at the bright side of things and share that joy. So on the four corners of my mat with my breath and my postures, I work within to cultivate qualities like this. And it's not easy. Each day I have to work at it. Together, we're in this together. So as we get started at the four corners of our mat, let's start off with 2 cleansing breaths. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Reminding ourselves, optimism is an attitude. Inhale through the 4 corners of the feet. Draw those arms up. Let's clasp around the right wrist and shift now over to the left, opening that right side body. Beautiful. And I almost kind of draw my left hip forward just a bit. Continue to breathe into the right side body, lateral flexion of the spine. Inhale, rise. Clasp my left wrist now. I sometimes make my thumb and index finger together. We call that a jhana mudra. It helps almost develop knowledge, yoga knowledge. Inhale and come over now to the right. Sometimes open, breathe into this left side of the body, but also draw that right hip forward. Inhale, rise. As I look up, I'm just cultivating optimism. On the exhale, I'm going to swan dive down into a forward fold. I might have to bend my knees and widen my feet as beginners, and I'm going to simply do a little dynamic heel and toe. Hands to the shins or the thighs or the ground. Gaze forward. Ardha Uttanasana. Feel that tailbone out. Gaze forward and down. Halfway lift. Framing the feet, we're going to, on the exhale, step back into Phalakasana here. This is where I want you to really core awakening. Hips not too high and it's not too low. Heels over the balls of the feet. I root into the ground with my hands. And I dome the upper back just a bit, but also kind of draw the shoulder blades towards one another. Beautiful Phalakasana. Stay here several breaths. Beautiful. Gently lowering to my knees, as the ancient yogis taught us, Ashtanga Pranam, and I tend to exaggerate it a little bit more. Knees, chest, and chin. Not a lot of yoga classes really exaggerate this, but some do, and I love to embrace and awaken the backside of my body. Hands by my chest, tailbone out and back, knees, chest, and chin, shoulders down my back ribs. Connect to this posture, this preparatory posture. Gently release, send those legs back, feet are hip width apart, hands by the chest. Inhale, easy cobra. Easy cobra is just an awakening of the lower back. My shoulders are in line with my elbows. On the exhale, I lead with my hips. Back to tabletop, I walk my hands forward a few inches. I come into down dog. Feet are hip width apart. Hands are shoulder width apart. I try to get my head in line with the shoulders. I root through my palms. I spread those fingers, and I kind of root a little bit more in the second and the third finger. Belly button to the spine, and let's think about firming those thighs. Inhale, hope. Beautiful. Exhale our worries. Truly be present. Transition. Let's walk it forward. Inhale. Halfway lift, either hands to the shins, the thighs, or the ground. Exhale, come into forward fold. Try to bring the sternum and chest a little bit closer to the shins. Gently bend the knees, open the chest, open the heart. This is cultivating an optimistic attitude. Exhale, heart centered. I love it. Inhale, draw those arms up. This time clasp around the left wrist now and shift over to the right, opening that left side body, yet drawing that right hip forward. Inhale, rise. Clasp around the right wrist. I like to take my thumb and index together and shift now over to the left. Opening that right side body, lateral flexion, and drawing that left hip forward. Inhale, rise. Exhale, swan dive down. Inhale, halfway lift. Gaze forward and down. Framing the feet, we're going to step back into plank. Engage the core, dome the upper back, core awakening. Press through those palms, belly button to the spine. Core strength. Gently lower to the knees. Knees, chest, and chin. Draw the shoulders down the back ribs. Tailbone out and back. Breathe into that posterior, the back side of the body. Exhale, send those legs back. Hands by the chest. Inhale, easy cobra. Look up. On the exhale, come back to tabletop. Walk those palms forward a few inches. Let's lead with those hips. Press through those palms, shoulders down the back ribs, tailbone back and down. Stay here several breaths. Breathe into any stiffness, any pain. Transition as we walk it forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Back is flat and long. Exhale, come into forward fold. Gently bend the knees, open the chest, open the heart. We're still awakening here. Exhale, heart centered. Rooting into the ground. Inhale, draw those arms up, energy out the fingers. Gaze up, look up, attitude. Sometimes that's all we have is our attitude, our own mental shift. Exhale, swan dive down into forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Back is flat. Gaze forward and down. Framing the feet, we're going to step back into down dog. Beautiful. In down dog, let's add a little spinal wave. I tend to kind of releve up on the balls of my feet, and I kind of lead it from the tailbone through the crown of the head, where I do this little dynamic movement, preparing for my practice. I love it. On the inhale, we're going to draw that left leg up, one-legged down dog, just about hip level. On the exhale, draw the left knee to the chest, to the nose. Dome the upper back. Gently place the left foot next to the left hand. Let's do 1 to 2 dynamics, and let's keep the hands at the heart. We're going to add a little shift here to the right and extend the arms from the center of the chest. And we're breathing into this right hip, but yet we're extending the arms from the center of the chest, incorporating the whole body. Hands heart-centered, come forward. Adding a little twist as we shift over to the left. You feel that right hip begin to kind of rotate internally. Beautiful. We're extending the arms, a little twist here. Hands come heart-centered. Breathe into that right hip. Gaze forward. Use the breath. Optimism is an attitude. Attitude for hope and success, for a brighter future. Frame the foot. Runner's pose. Back leg straight. Firm that left hip. Let's plant the hands to the ground. Draw that left leg back. Come into down dog. Inhale, draw that right leg up into one-legged down dog. Firm that left hip. Back leg straight. On the exhale, draw the right knee to the chest. Beautiful, to the nose. Dome the upper back. Agility as we place the right foot next to the right hand. Hands to the hips. 1 or 2 dynamics, hands heart-centered. Nestle into the breath here. Inhale, exhale through the nose. Breathe into that left hip. Adjusting, coming into the whole body here. Shift to the left. Now extend those arms from the center of the chest. Feel that left hip opening. Breathe into that left hip. Hands to the heart, face forward. Come up a little more vertical, beautiful. Now shift over to the right, extend those arms from the center of the chest. Feel that left hip rotating inward. Hands come center, come back forward. Frame the foot. Connect. Runner's pose, back leg straight. Beautiful. Plant the hands. Come back into down dog here. I love it. Beautiful. Transition, we're going to walk the hands and the feet towards one another at the same time. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold, deep forward fold. Can we clasp those elbows? And it's almost like a sandbag. The elbows weigh us down, opening up the backside of the body. Letting everything go. Being present. Gently bend the knees. Inhale, open the chest. Open the heart. Exhale, heart centered. We're going to face each other at the center of the mat. I love to kind of awaken myself a little bit before I dive in and kind of set my intention for our practice. As we close our eyes and lower our head to the fingertips, just take a moment and acknowledge this amazing opportunity to dive in on this mat, to breathe into the postures, to cultivate this positive attitude, this optimistic attitude that lives within each one of us. Perhaps we're going to dedicate this practice to a friend, someone, a family member that might need some optimism. Might need some encouragement. Gently look up. Maybe we'll call that friend. Maybe we'll write them a nice note. Right? It's a little gift that yoga does. I want us to circle the hands around a few times, and sometimes I just do this as a little way to kind of warm up my wrists. And I'm going to circle them the other direction. Good. And sometimes I draw my hands together. Keep the elbows kind of up by the heart. I just press into this little wrist awakening, this little wrist flexibility and wrist strengthening. We'll stay here several breaths. Beautiful, and we'll shake it out a bit. Do a lot of wrist work in yoga. We strengthen the wrists. Hands by the chest, elbows up. Let's add a little bit of a hop into our Prasarita stance, 5-point star. Rotate the big toes in. Press outer edges of the feet. And this is where I awaken my arches too. We're going to clasp the hands behind, and I want us to draw the shoulders together, the shoulder blades. And we're going to open the chest, open the heart. Exhale, come forward. Beautiful. Think about almost trying to get the hands close to the ground as we breathe into those hamstrings, into the inner groin. And we're releasing the shoulders. We'll stay here several breaths. Inhale, belly button to the spine, back is flat and rise. We're going to do this together, so I'm going to mirror you here. You're going to turn your left foot, rotate it kind of where the hip is facing straight ahead, and the back hip is coming up here. Beautiful. Heel intersects with the back arch or the back heel, you decide. Inhale, extend those arms from the center of the chest as we prepare for extended triangle. Some of you might want to take a block outside of the foot if that helps you, okay? Or we can take it the hand to the shin. Inhale, halfway lift. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, we're going to reach forward, hand to the shin. Keep the body in one plane. We're not slumping forward. Or we're going to extend and come a little bit lower without slumping forward. And this is where I want you to kind of rotate those bottom ribs forward and breathe into this back hip. Inhale, rise. Draw your left arm up, right hand behind you here. Right onto the left hip and open that side body and draw that left hip just up a bit into a little bit of a triangle bind. Countering, extended triangle, counter pose. Gently release. Cleansing breath, inhale. Exhale. You're going to take your right leg, right? And it's going to intersect back heel with the arch or the heel, and you're going to turn that back foot in just a bit. Beautiful. And you feel this leg rotating from the inside out. So knee and foot pointed straight ahead. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, reach forward. Most of us will keep the hand by the shin here and keep the body in one plane, not slumping forward, not too much back, like between the pages of a book. Some of us may be able to come a little bit lower. We're going to continue to breathe into the back hip. Fingers towards the ceiling. If the neck bothers you, you can gaze at the ground or gaze straight ahead. If your neck doesn't bother you, you may gaze up. Breathe into the back hip and the back foot. On the transition, we're going to inhale, root and rise. Draw that right arm up. Open that side body. Take the left hand to the right hip here, opening that right side body, I should say. Yes. Breathe into that. Beautiful. Gently release. Cleansing breath. Inhale. Exhale. Heel toe it in. We're going to have fun with this. We're going to practice fallen triangle. This is actually kind of fun. We're going to inhale, draw those arms up. Exhale, swan dive down. Inhale, halfway lift. Hands to the shins, thighs or ground. Plant the hands by the feet. Exhale, come into down dog. How do you not And we're going to hold in down dog. But one way to cultivate optimism is to kind of have fun sometimes too. And this is kind of fun. We're going to do the best that we can in fallen triangle here. So we're pressing through those palms at first, enjoying beautiful down dog, breathing into those hamstrings. On the inhale, we're going to draw that right leg up to hip level, one-legged down dog. On the exhale, we're drawing the right knee to the elbow or the tricep, placing the outer edge, knife edge of that right foot onto the ground. Now we're adjusting that back foot so it's like 45 to 60 degrees, almost like a warrior two. We're going to root, press outer edge of the right foot, press into that right hand, draw that left shoulder in, left arm by the head, almost externally rotating, fingers rotating in, and draw the right bottom ribs forward. It's a little bit of a back bend in our fallen triangle. We'll stay here several breaths. Draw the heart towards the ceiling. Gently release. Lower the right hip just a bit, hands to the ground, plant the hands, come back into down dog. Let's do a cleansing breath together. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale, we're going to draw that left leg to hip level. On the exhale, we're drawing the left knee towards the elbow, towards the triceps. We're going to press outer edge of that left foot, which is kind of in line with the hips here. And then we're going to turn that back foot in about 45 to 60 degrees here. We're going to press outer edge of the left foot, press into the left palm, and draw that right arm up by the head, rotate the pinky in, draw the armpit towards the ear, and then take the left bottom ribs, rotate them forward. Beautiful fallen triangle here. Gently lower the left hip, plant the hand to the ground, come into beautiful down dog. Walk the hands and the feet towards each other at the same time. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, come into deep forward fold. Draw the sternum and chest closer to the shins. Come more to the midfoot and just feel that release of the hamstrings. Gently bend the knees. Open the chest, open the heart. Mental attitude, optimism. Exhale, heart-centered. Beautiful. Revolve triangle. The reason I've sequenced, I've added a couple standing postures in here to really connect to our pelvic hip girdle before we get on and work on our splits. But I'm sequencing this in a way to really prepare you guys and to give you a well-rounded practice. Revolve triangle is a challenge. We're going to rotate that back hip inward, and we're going to really take the mid-thoracic, okay, and rotate it. It's a challenge. It definitely is. Let's start with the left foot in front, right leg behind. It is a few inches less than a full leg length. Many beginners will start with a block on the inside. The more advanced will start with a block on the outside. I would say for many years, I just kept the block on the inside. It was such a challenge for me. Hips facing forward. Sometimes I still just keep my block on the inside and go with a lighter practice. Heel to arch or heel to, yes, heel, or maybe even widen it just a bit if we need to, if that helps us. Hips facing forward. Let's draw that left hand on the hip. Draw that right arm up. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, draw that right hand inside of the right foot for most of us. Some of us on the outside. And I want us to take that mid-thoracic and rotate. You can keep the hands on the for beginners, or you can draw that hand up. Top ribs back, bottom ribs forward. Beautiful. If the neck doesn't bother you, you can gaze up. Stable back foot, stable hips. Left hand on the hip, gaze at that big toe. Inhale, root and rise. Beautiful. Cleansing breath, inhale. Exhale. I love it. Let's take the right foot out in front this time. And draw it a few inches shorter than one leg length. Either the block on the inside for the beginners, the block on the outside if you've, been a former dancer or you have a lot of flexibility in your life. So block on the inside for the majority of. So this is a challenge from the beginning. Can I get my hips facing forward? This is a challenge. It's what we want to work on. Stable back foot, okay? Keep that right hand on the hip. Draw that left foot, that left hand up. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, reach forward. Hand to the block. Hand on the hip for the beginners. Eventually, can we draw that right arm up? Draw the top ribs back. Bottom ribs forward. Rotate that back hip inward. Beautiful. Right hand on the hip. Gaze at that big toe. Inhale. Root and rise. Beautiful. It's okay to fall out of these postures too, guys. As we're getting better, that's part of the practice. Falling out, losing our balance, but yet challenging ourselves. Let's take the blocks. We're going to have them kind of on the sides here as we begin to work on Anamanasana. They're there for a reason. But let's come up to the edge of the mat. Let's do a cleansing breath together. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Love it. Inhale, draw those arms up. We're a little bit more awake here. So let's come into a little bit of a back bend. I like to take the palms together, or thumb and index together. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, come into a back bend. Just a little bit of one. Open the chest, open the heart. Inhale, rise. Exhale, swan dive down into a forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Beautiful, guys. Framing the feet, we're going to walk back into down dog here. Beautiful. Draw the shoulders down the back ribs. Beautiful transitional pose, heart of yoga, down dog. Breathe into those hamstrings, breathe into the back. On the inhale, one-legged down dog, draw that left leg up to hip level. On the exhale, draw the left knee to the chest, to the nose. Place the left foot next to the left hand. We're going to interlace the fingers. Draw the thumbs towards us. Breathe into this right hip. This is a challenge for many of us, I understand. Do the best that we can. Eventually, some of us may be able to open the chest, open the heart, almost open up the neck, tilt the chin up. We'll stay here several breaths. Almost push away, breathing into this right hip. Gently release. Hands come to the ground, frame the foot. Beautiful. Knee stays on the ground. We're going to plant the right hand into the ground. We're going to take the left hand. We're going to connect. Can I take the left hand and clasp my right foot? And I don't want the left hip to flail out. I want to take that right foot and draw the heel towards the buttocks. And you can feel the release in the quadriceps, a huge release, which helps with hip flexibility. Close those eyes, breathe into that release. Beautiful. Gently release, preparing for one of my favorite postures. It's just incredible, the gifts of splits for the hip flexors, hip extensors. We're going to the front and back, the entire hip girdle. We're going to shift that left hip back. Notice I tuck my back toe. I'm pressing into my heel of the left heel. And I'm going to adjust my blocks here. I don't want to round here. I want us to try to come forward with our spine. Our spine is long. We're going to press through that left foot and just kind of awaken where the hamstrings attach under the ischial tuberosity. And this is where I'm going to use the blocks. I'm going to press into my blocks, which are stationed just like they are. And I'm going to press the heel out a little bit farther. So my hips almost stay the same, but I let my heel come out here. And this is where I want to adjust. Left hip back, right hip forward. For many of us, we're right here. We're going to breathe into this discomfort. We're going to breathe into this pain. We're challenging ourselves. I have practiced before, and I definitely have some natural flexibility. So I'm able to come lower into this pose. But we're going to take it to wherever we are. Breathe into that pain. Breathe into that discomfort. And maybe go another 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch farther. Beautiful. When we point our foot, it makes it easier to challenge ourselves. We can come into a little bit more of a dorsiflexion. Beautiful. Some of you that can get into the splits, you may open the chest, open the heart, but continue. Left hip back, right hip forward. Beautiful. Stay here. So you don't want to just sink into that left hip. We want to square those hips. Gently release. Pressing into the blocks. Let's mindfully transition. This is where I think I tuck my back toe. Tuck the back toe first. And mindfully transition as we draw that left heel back. Beautiful. And let's place the hands just onto the ground here as we transition into down dog. Beautiful. Reconnect here. Reconnect. I'm going to kind of adjust and come off the wall just a little bit more here. Inhale, draw that right leg up to hip level. Mindfully transition right knee to the chest, to the nose. Place the right foot next to the right hand. Lower that left knee to the ground. Let's interlace the hands, thumbs towards us, and let's try to sink a little bit lower, breathing into this left hip, possibly opening the chest and heart, tilting the chin, opening the throat, really pushing away, preparing our hip for our practice, for our splits. Gently release. Hands come to the ground. Knee stays on the ground. This is where the left hand presses into the ground. And I take my right hand now. Yes, and I try to clasp this back foot here. Beautiful. And I draw the heel towards the buttocks. Might even close my eyes here. Really feel that release in the left thigh, the left quadricep. Gently release. This is where I'm going to shift those hips back. Press through the right heel, and I wanted to make length in my spine as I draw my sternum and chest forward. But I think about drawing my right hip back still and my left hip forward. Pressing through that right heel and feeling where those hamstrings insert under the right sitting bone. Gently release. We're going to explore Anamanasana. So I'm pressing into the blocks and I'm gently allowing the right heel to come forward. Beautiful. And this is where I notice I'm trying to square the hips. I might be in pain and I might simply stop here. Use the breath. I'm flexible enough, right, where I have this in my practice, but I just don't dump to one side. I square my hips, right hip back, left hip forward. Again, pointing the foot makes it easier. Dorsiflexion a little bit more advanced. I root into the ground. I draw length in the spine, doing the best wherever we can. Maybe we sink another ½ inch lower. Beautiful job, you guys. Very proud of you. We're going to tuck our back toes here, and we're going to draw the right heel back. Beautiful. And we're going to mindfully transition. Let's come back to the knees here, and let's just take the heel of the hands on the blocks. The blocks are shoulder width apart, so you may have to adjust them. And let's come up to one last down dog, but I love to use the blocks a little bit for the down dog. Give myself a few inches and just connect to another different angle of this. Take those heels, make sure they're in line with the pinky toe. Draw the shoulders down the back ribs and just simply breathe. Inhale, exhale through the nose. Calm the mind. Stay here several breaths. Gently lower to the knees. We're going to do a wide-legged child's pose, utilizing the blocks. So it's big toes touching. Widen the knees. Draw the blocks out and rest the forehead to the ground, all while shifting the hips towards the heels, pressing through the blocks and drawing an increasing length in the spine. Optimism is an attitude. We can nourish it with our breath, with our postures, with working within on the four corners of the mat. Continue to press through those blocks, draw length in the spine. Stay here several more breaths. Gently release. Amazing job. Come out of this. We're going to remove the blocks. Lying on our back. We're going to draw the right knee to the chest. Clasp under the knee, right on the shin here. Guide the right knee over to the left, come onto that left hip and extend that right arm to the side here. Press the right shoulder into the ground and feel that release in the upper and middle part of your back. Beautiful. Stay here several more breaths. Awesome. Gently release. So many benefits from a spinal twist. Come back to just lying on the mat. Now draw the left knee to the chest, to the nose, clasp around the shin. Shift the left knee now and the foot over to the right and come onto that right hip, but then extend that left arm out to the side, rest the left shoulder into the ground and release the upper and middle part of the back. It's okay for the exhale to be longer than the inhale. Gently release. Clasp, draw both knees to the chest here and just clasp around the shins and just breathe evenly into the lower back here as we prepare for Shavasana, but we want to breathe evenly on both sides of the lower back, tailbone towards the ground. Beautiful. Now I'm going to let you kind of nestle into your Shavasana, and you're going to let everything go, and you're going to hold it as long as you want. You're going to regenerate here for the next 5, 10, 15 minutes, reflecting back on your intention of your practice as we begin to let everything go, knowing that you're capable of learning from mistakes, moving forward, cultivating hope, developing an attitude with optimism. And optimism is recognizing that the light shines in you and everyone else, which is the gift of Namaste. Let everything go, nestle away, and stay in the Shavasana as long as you'd like. One last breath, inhale. Deep exhale. Let everything go.